Well, good morning, folks. How are you all today? We're going on another adventure today. Going to do a beach walk, about an hour long, and we'll have someone that's going to tell us some interesting things about the beach. Now, I'm going to be going down there in my handy-dandy little golf cart, so y'all take along and enjoy the views. They're letting me out. Hey. There's a big pavilion that goes out to the pier. And here are some of the shops on our way down. Look at those beautiful palm trees. I do believe there's going to be a big pirate thing celebration going on. I'm coming up on a little grill right here. It makes one of the best Bloody Marys ever. So hopefully at the end of our walk, we'll come back and we'll have ourselves a Bloody Mary. It's like a knee. Oh, we got more pirate stuff. Wow. Look at that. Skeleton. Boy, neat. I said there's going to be a competition later on who does the best job dressing up as a pirate. So here we go. Some of these beautiful homes. Here's an interesting all dressed, ready to go partying. Slow. So I'm going to take you to one of our favorite little places to ride the golf cart to. And it overlooks the marsh, Tybee River, and Tybee Creek in Little Tybee. us to put in some small boats, kayaks, come and go some fishing, and I just saw some dolphins. We'll get to see them again. But when we came here the first of the week, right after the hurricane hit, this was blocked off with a big sand pile and barricaded so that the water couldn't come in. So we'll sit here for just a minute and see if we see that dolphin. And you can see that old wrecked boat way over there. It's been there for some time. And I think I see the dolphin trying to come up right out there.
Oh, there it was. There it is. It's two of them. Do you see them?
Yeah. There they are. This is where the Tybee Creek meets the Atlantic. There they are again. Oh, barely missed them. Here they are. Glad we got to see some dolphins. Okay, this is the new Tybee Island Marine Science Center, and this building is classed to withstand a Category 4 hurricane. And here is our tour guide, Miss Debbie, right there behind that big, in front of that big whale. So here we go on our beach walk.
The North Atlantic right whale was hunted extensively during the whaling times. It was the right whale to hunt because it has lots of blubber. It floats to the surface when it was harpooned. It also is very slow moving and stays shallow in the water, so it was very easy to harvest this whale. Now the thing that is a problem for this whale nowadays, especially because whales take quite a long time to repopulate when they've become so low in their population, they only calve maybe every other year or so because the calf stays with the mom for up to a year or more because she's nursing that calf. They are marine mammals. The right whale was actually made our state marine mammal. We did not have one before until recently. As a matter of fact, this was fundraised in part from one of our educators at the Tybee Island Marine Academy, who with her students lobbied to have the right whale be a marine mammal for the state of Georgia. So that is really neat. They do calve here off our coast. They're near shore, so you don't always have to be in a boat to see them. But the population right now is less than 400. So it is very, very crucial to protect these very endangered species. And to keep it out of our ocean, we have installed some burrow boxes for people to recycle their unwanted toys or no longer usable tents or chairs. You'd be surprised what we find in this box. So if you don't have something and you need it, you can check the box. If you need a floaty, you can take a floaty and put it back so it does not wind up in the water, being left on the beach and also causing all kinds of damage to our ecosystem and to the wildlife that might become entangled or otherwise ingest any of these plastic things. That's kind of a good...
We made a donation yesterday.
There's one down by us, and we went on the Shark's Tooth excursion island, and we bought some little shovels, you know, and then we didn't need them anymore. So I took them and put them in the box, and we went back yesterday, and they were gone, which was nice.
Yes, people need
and different stuff was in there, which was really cool.
You can see here the hurricane glass and everything that we have.
This is hurricane glass. Category 4.
Island map up here.
We've been to Cumberland,
You've been to
Jekyll,
Cumberland?
St. Simon's.
So
we've driven out on Sea Island, but we didn't stay there.
Yes, the islands that you can drive to, because we have 14, some people say 16 barrier islands, but we really recognize 14 of them. The ones that you can drive to, of course, are Tybee. You can drive to St. Simon's, Sea Island, and Jekyll Island. So they're the most populated as far as development.
Right.
And you know, a lot of light source pollution, things like that we were talking about with the sea turtles. But of course, Ossabaw, St. Catharines, Blackbeard, Sapelo. If you've ever been to Sapelo, it's a great place to go. You've been to Cumberland Island down here. Now, Cumberland Island had a banner year. We actually all had a banner year for sea turtle nests on our beaches and all our barrier islands. We had a whopping 36, which is about 16 more than we've ever had on Tybee.
That's awesome.
I want to say that Jekyll had about 250, which is usually about 150 to 200. Cumberland Island had last year about 600 to 40. This year they had over 1,200 sea turtles nest on the island.
Oh my gosh, how cool is
So
that?
it's been a big year for sea turtles along our coast. We have 100 miles of Georgia coast. If you include the marshes and all of the estuaries and tidal creeks in there, it's considerably more than that. But typically, they recognize the 100 miles along the coast from our barrier islands and our sound.
So I have a question for you.
Wilmington Island first.
Yes. You mentioned barrier islands. Can you tell me why the barrier islands are important for Georgia?
Well, the barrier islands are important, especially for what we just experienced last week with Hurricane Ian. They do exactly that. They provide a barricade or protect the coastline from inundation from seawater. So if you choose to build a home on a barrier island or on any place that's that close to the ocean, chances are from time to time there's going to be a natural event that impacts where you live. So that is something that people need to be mindful of. It's a very changing ecosystem. The power of nature's constructive and destructive forces are still at play, even though we don't realize it from day to day. The 100-year cycles or 500-year cycles of people talking about different storms that have hit, especially in Florida, are definitely life-changing in some instances, depending upon where you are. But they do protect our islands. I saw on Jekyll Island, for example, last weekend, it looked like the whole beach was just scarped. Looked like someone took a knife right through the dunes. And there was no soft sand in the front. There was just this big abrupt cut through. You could do a good soil profile through there, looking at the different sediments of the dunes, but definitely that was the impact that Ian had on Jekyll, for example. Here we're much smaller island. We're further north, so I don't think we got as much of the onslaught as that, although it was very windy. We did have some flooding. We were expecting to have maybe ankle deep possibly water in our building, actually underneath in our undercroft, but I don't believe we got any water this time. So the barrier islands do their job, and then the dunes do their job to protect the inland areas.
All right, thank you.
Some fritillary butterflies and viceroys probably out here. There are a lot of beach roses and asters that are out here right now. We had some blanket flowers. They're orange. And White House right behind us. It's right behind the Science Center as well. So we're at a good vantage point right here for the dunes.
So I do have a question, and I was asking my lovely wife there, are palm trees native here?
Not necessarily native. There are some native species. A lot are planted, those royal palms and what have you. Mostly the cabbage palms are native here, and there are several other. Excuse me, there's some folks coming by.
Sorry.
There are several other that you can find on our other barrier islands, but anything that produces like the big coconuts are typically the ones that were planted here.
Thank you.
Of the dunes from the end of the walkway towards that direction. So as we walk, we can kind of take some observations, and we'll take a closer look on the other side as well. Ask people, what do you notice? They usually say the danger sign. Well, it's not really just for the dunes. We'll talk about that when we get there. But do you notice this kind of looks like a path that's going out to the danger sign? Well, since there is wildlife in the dunes, so there are wildlife that's going to follow other wildlife. And you can find deer wandering through here. That's probably a footpath for deer or foxes, coyotes. making it back and forth. You don't typically find alligators very much on the beach because they can't withstand the salt content of the water.
But there are alligators on the island?
There are alligators, can be found in almost any freshwater area, retention ponds included, so it just depends on where you are.
We were talking about that, we weren't sure.
The tidal creeks that have more freshwater inundating. Nice time of year because of the water conditions and whether or not you should go in the water. We had a lot of purple at the bottom there this year. We had a lot of stinging things in the water.
Really?
So we're just pretty much have ended our jellyfish season. We all have shirts that say I survived jellyfish season. And that is just something that you have to be concerned about.
Here's a stand of sea oats.
These sea oats are very crucial to our dune ecosystem because they are essentially the first vegetation that you see between the ocean, the sand, and the dunes. So their main job is to hold that sand in place. They also can catch the sand that blows down the beach and continue to build up the dunes across the beaches. You'll see variations just because of the way the wind blows and where the sand gets deposited. So they are actually looking like they're seeding right now because it is the fall. So they bloom, they're going to seed now. It is unlawful and it can be a hefty fine to pick any sea oats or disturb the dunes in any way, shape, or form because they are here for our protection, especially. So that is a good indicator of how
So this
high
red
the
line
tides
here
have come up.
is where the high tide was when Ian was out at sea coming up the coast. And you can see how far out that it came in. There's the jetty, which I'm sure she'll tell us something about us when we go down there.
It's unlawful to walk on the jetties. Do you think it's natural or man-made?
Oh, it's probably man-made.
It is man-made. They're natural rocks.
It looks like it's granite of some sort.
It is granite. Was shipped in from other parts of the state. You can see the quartz kind of running through some of the rocks, especially, and the mica, that's sparkling in the sun. But it is a man-made structure. It was initially, they were placed here to essentially help with the accretion of sand and help build the beach. However, because of our longshore current and our location, it didn't work. It did not help with that. So about every third year or so, the Army Corps of Engineers comes out to Tybee. They lay a humongous pipe. It takes months for them to do this across the beach, out into the channel and pump sand back on the beach to renourish.
That's where the shark's teeth are.
That's where the sharks are.
Yes,
That's
the
a good time to come when they do the dredging. You will find sharks.
You said every, what, 2 years?
About every 3 years. When we had Matthew and Irma back to back, they had to come out more often to replenish because they had just renourished the beach, I want to say the year before, but about every 3 years or so they come out to do that. Yeah, it is a good time to
we'll have to see if they got a calendar on their website.
Yeah, they'll probably post it somewhere in Tybee when that's going to be. Usually it's in the winter months, like January, February, March or so. Well, it's up here. It's prime real estate for the moment. Do their best to start creating more dune.
Baby dunes.
Wind and wave action. Again, you can see how high that tide came up all the way up to this area. But beyond here, we do have a lot of shorebird nesting habitat. And we actually have a program on the 19th. Actually, we'll be here that long. And one of our shorebird aficionados will be here doing a presentation on shorebirds and the importance of the barrier islands and their nesting habitat. So this pretty much tells you the year-long residents that we see most of the time here, the different kinds of gulls and terns. We have a gull that is very prominent, very easy to spot with that big black head.
Oh yeah, I always called them a black-capped gull, but I guess that's not.
It is actually a laughing gull.
Oh,
they look at it and they go, ha ha ha.
Yeah, you hear them too, yeah.
You hear them kind of cackling on top of their head, and they've got that red mark on their lower beak, and that's where the little baby chicks will ask mama for food, so she knows to open her mouth. And then we have our ring-billed gulls that actually have a ring around their bill, so their names go with the bird pretty much. So those are the three major types of gulls we have here, as well as some terns. I have seen down here these little ruddy turnstones. It's hard to see because the grass is kind of covering the sun a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
But their winter plumage is on them right now. They don't really build nests, so to speak, like songbirds do in trees. You might just find a really speckled egg that's camouflaged in the rack line or in a group of shells. So that is where they will sit down and incubate those eggs too. So it's really, you got to look really where you're stepping when you're out here during breeding season.
Tracks.
You see those little footprints?
Those crap.
Oh yeah, look, he walked over to his neighbor's house.
Look, exactly, that's what they do. They are, they're so funny looking. They are a predator of baby sea turtles.
Oh, really?
Cycle of life, what goes around comes around, you know, and there's a reason for females depositing 100 to 120 eggs per nest, some of which are infertile, but these are the guys that predate the baby sea turtles. They can be predated by fire ants. We had issues with coyotes this year, getting some of the nests, which we've never really had on this small island before. But they are nocturnal, so you won't really see them during the day. You might see them early dawn or when it's just barely dusky out in the evening, starting to come out. And they like it when it's cooler too. So they're pretty active, but you can definitely see the little antics, the little footprints everywhere in the dunes. It's really hard to see them with a little baby in their claws, but you know, you have to remember that's the cycle of life. That's their food. Different places in Georgia, not just the ocean. So this dark sand is actually a mineral called magnetite. And the magnetite is important for the sea turtles because they will imprint on their natal beach when they emerge from their nest and make their way back 25 or 30 years later, if a female survives to reproductive age, and find their natal beach using a magnetic field and using the magnetite to locate where they were born. I know, amazing?
Yeah.
I always ask people, if you were underground in the dark for 2 months and came out at night and swam out to the Sargasso Sea about 80 miles off our coast and didn't come back for 25 years, could you find your way home?
Yeah,
So you made a statement
that is awesome.
Their reproductive age is what age?
About 25 to 30 years of age. So between the time that the mama deposits the eggs on the beach, which she just does leave behind, she camouflages them and packs them up as best she can, but then she's gone. She might lay 3 to 5 nests in one nesting season, but she won't come back to tend the nests. They are left to incubate. Their gender is assigned basically by the average temperature of the nest, which I believe it's if above 86 degrees, it produces more females. This being a really hot summer and the nest hatching so quickly, as we mentioned earlier, we believe that typically there will have been more females that were produced for all the nests.
Which is good. Very good.
Which it's good, and it's just that if there's only 1 in 4,000 that makes it to adult reproductive age because of all the obstacles they have from the time they're deposited till the time they make it out to sea, to the time they make it back as a subadult. After they've been swimming the currents of the ocean out to Gray's Reef, they might be out there for 8 to 10 years and then make their way eventually back on shore when it's nesting time. You will only see the females emerge anyway. But it's just, you know, a matter of data collection, that a lot of the research that goes into this on our state, on our islands.
I have one more question for you. How long are they in a reproductive cycle?
Usually from May 1st to August 1st. Not every female will reproduce every year. So about every 3rd year there might be a little bit of a lull. But 2019 and this year were both banner years for sea turtle nests. So we believe that the 30 years of conservation efforts that have been made, and now we're seeing some of those youngsters come to reproductive age, are partially the reason why we're having such a great nesting season.
So if it takes almost 25 to 30 years to get to reproductive age, how many years do they have to reproduce? 10, 15, 12?
They can. I will tell you about Big Bertha on Jekyll Island, and I got a chance to see her one year. She was nesting well into her 90s. We had found genetic material from the nest that she's had daughters, granddaughters, and a great-granddaughter that had nested back on Jekyll Island. So she was nesting well into her 90s. She was doing it for the species, that's for sure, doing her part to have the loggerhead turtles have a good reproductive success.
Right. Thank you.
When the dolphins, typically they're going to follow the fish in on the turn of the tide, so it's a good time to see them when that high tide and low tide starts to change. So you can see them out here. The tide is still fairly low. They're out in the water. Sometimes you will see this behavior where there are pelicans and seagulls that are plummeting down fishing, but it's typically because the dolphins are underneath there herding up the fish, so it makes it easier pickings for the shorebirds to find them.
Cool.
You'll also see them pinning fish up alongside the beach. Sometimes they'll come all the way up and actually have their bellies on the beach and are pinning fish like pompano up on the side and kind of eating them from the side.
Wow.
It's really awesome behavior to see that.
I bet. I bet that is.
The sprinkles outside of them are actually, many of them are the ghost shrimp, and they are another ghosty thing, right? They have a really big claw and they dig really fast underground. So they might make a tunnel about 5 or 6 feet under the sand.
Wow.
So they look like this. That would be a ghost shrimp. And I've seen them be about 6 inches or more long. They're very transparent, right? You don't want to have your stuff inside your tunnel, so that is what's bubbling out, is their excrement and stays on the top there. They clean out their hole. But they are, if you want to come in and just spend a few minutes kind of using your hands, be careful not to scrape. I've gotten plenty of barnacle scrapes. You're okay?
Yeah, I don't want to.
You don't want to explore, but you can just kind of pick up and out.
Oh, yeah.
But since they don't produce their own shell, they don't produce their own shell like the shellfish do, so they have to borrow someone else's shell. There might be a predator around, so he's probably just kind of making sure that we're not going to eat him, because that's a teeny tiny little guy. Yeah. It looks like one of our...
And the jetties, which are man-made. So there is Tybee Island Lighthouse. So I hope you've enjoyed this little excursion. And as usual, I'll see you on down the trail. Marine Center, Science Center, and the lighthouse in the background. So I was telling you about this building being able to withstand a Category 4 hurricane, but there's something unique about these windows as well. I don't know if you can notice, but they are tinted. And the reason that they are tinted the way they are is so they do not get any light shining out at night if there's something going on inside, which could cause the turtles to go to that light and of course not be able to make it back out to the ocean. So that's some great thoughtfulness that went into doing that, so that we didn't have any light coming from them at night.